Cool. So, firstly, Pete, welcome onto the Stickmen podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. For those of our many regular viewers, I noticed that Renee is not here today. I'm doing a pod with my good friend Pete, who also lives in Finland. I'll get more into that in a second. First bit of housekeeping tasks. Apologies for the terrible video quality. We don't have Renee's professional level YouTube SLR camera. We're just using my shitty webcam basically. So that is not not our usual production value. But as you might notice, we have got our wonderful logo up here in the corner, as well as the nice little Stickmen pod. So we've upgraded a little bit. So anyway, my good friend Pete is joining me for the pod. I wanted to have him on as me and Renee do a weekly podcast, and just thought get my friend Pete on to have a bit of a chat. Just briefly for the viewers, do you want to maybe have a little intro of just who you are and what you're about, or just very briefly before I tell them a bit about us and how we got to meet? Or
Sure, yeah. I'm Pete. Been living in Finland for around 8 years, and I've been a professional poker player for around 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And I guess that's pretty much me. I went straight from uni to playing poker full time. Never done any other full time jobs.
Yep.
So I'm a poker player basically, and that has been my life for that time.
Yeah, exactly, and that's actually how you and I met. We, for anyone who doesn't know, me and Pete, we met through poker many years ago. If I had to guess, it was probably around 2014, maybe, give or take.
Yes.
As in, we met our present. The thing that's weird about poker is you'll meet people virtually, right, for so many years. So we chatted in Skype chats, which goes to show our age there, because nobody uses Skype anymore. It's all.
I don't know. I think some people might.
There you go. Showing your age, Pete. I think the kids don't use it anymore.
No. No.
It's like, do you remember when MSN Messenger was a thing? And it was the big thing. Now, we are the MS. That is the new MSN Messenger. I believe it's all. I don't know what it is now. Telegram, TikTok, Insta, Twitter. I don't know, all these things. So, but we met through a Skype group for poker players, and we just used to chat for a bit. Thought Pete was a nice lad, and we ended up meeting formally, I believe, a mutual friend of ours, a dinner in London to celebrate a poker achievement of theirs. That was Bert. Shout out to Big Steeler.
Yeah.
We met in person there, and that's how the friendship sort of began. It was more almost like colleagues, if you will, back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then I remember
first colleagues, really. So I'm not sure I'd really met. Met professional poker players before I met any of you guys.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, everything's virtual, and then you meet them. It's like, I guess you're colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so strange, isn't it? Because when I think back to that, at how we met in person once at that dinner, very briefly, probably a couple of hours. Went to a steakhouse of some form, a couple of beers, maybe, sort of thing. Like, I don't think I even drank at the time. It was just sort of very very brief like that. And then fast forward years down the line, I'd moved out to LA to play cash games, and on my journey back, so I was in LA for 7 months, and then when I got back to the UK, I don't even know how this happened. Do you want to tell a little bit briefly about your travels to Lisbon when you went with the guys for poker, and how you met your wife now, essentially?
Yeah. So it was a similar time in LA, is that?
Yeah, I think maybe 6 months or so before you went to Lisbon with the boys. Maybe I remember slightly better. I remember I was with my ex at the time. I lived in the UK. Me and my ex-girlfriend, we lived in an apartment together. And I remember you and Bert messaging me basically saying, do I want to come to Lisbon to live in a poker house as the four lads sort of thing?
Yeah.
I was like, I'd love to, but it just wasn't feasible. I was in a long-term relationship. We were renting an apartment. It wasn't really feasible. And you, Mikey, and Bert went out to Lisbon, and you were a single man, I believe, and you ended up sort of last few days before you came back, you matched with Terhi on Tinder. I've not said Twitter, but how, for those of you who haven't used Tinder or haven't been single in that sense, it's quite common that you'll match with someone as you cross paths in terms of proximity, but often by the time you actually get the match, you've kind of fucked off, like that they're just passing through town. So you'll end up matching with someone who was a kilometre away or a mile away, but by the time you actually interact with them, they're 300 kilometers away because they were just in the train station or whatever. And that's kind of what happened with Pete and Terhi. Terhi was visiting Lisbon for a holiday. You were just ending your poker trip out there. You were moving back to the UK, and she was moving back to Finland. And I remember you messaging me on Skype or whatever, just saying, "Oh, I met a girl. I'm going out to visit her in Finland." And I remember just thinking, Jesus Christ, fair enough, kind of cool sort of thing. And you flew out for some kind of long weekend, I suppose. I remember you came back and you were like, "Yeah, went really well. Really like her. She's nice. We're gonna go and visit again." Long story short, Pete ended up dating the girl at the time and moved out here for 6 months, 3 months. You were doing 3 months off and on, was it?
It was like the first time I moved was about 3 or 4 months. 3 or 4 months. Airbnb or something.
Yeah, because I seem to remember you get. Ah, true. Yeah, and tell them about that because that was hilarious. You booked the wrong city, didn't you?
Yeah.
I want you to tell this story.
Not really a story. It was just trying to find somewhere to. I mean, at the time, it's like I don't want to rent somewhere, or I don't think I've rented before, and it just seemed like Airbnb was the easiest thing to do if you want to live somewhere.
For sure,
without all the red tape stuff. It was just like order online,
especially for a poker player,
for like 2 months, 3 months. And if I remember at the time, I knew I wanted to spend more time in Finland, but I didn't really want to rent a house next door to Terhi and just be like, "Hello, I live here now." So I deliberately did move to a city that was a few hours away, so it would be like, I'm here and I can come and visit like at weekends or whatever, a few hours away.
Right. Okay. So I might have
that
been...
was kind of the plan in my head anyway.
Okay. So when I heard from Terhi, I had a slightly different. Maybe the spin of it was a bit different, but essentially that you and your good friend Ben, great guy as well. I've met Ben, lovely dude, and you guys, but also a poker player, and you decided to rent a place together. He loves Finland as well, I think, and I think he speaks a million languages, and Finnish was a bit of one of them, wasn't it?
He partially inspired me to come to Finland in the first place. He was like, it's just amazing. Yeah,
so basically you you and Ben moved to Finland, and you were dating Terhi at the time, and I'd heard you basically, when she said, "Oh, cool, where's your apartment?" You sort of sent her, and she was like, "In Vasa." Was it Vasa?
Yeah.
Vasa rings a bell. It was in Vasa. Vasa's like 2 hours away from Tampere, where we live now, and she was like, and bear in mind, London is 3 hours away from Tampere on the flight, so it was one of those ones where it was kind of, was it really a benefit kind of thing, especially with the train cost. The train's like, from Vasa is probably €70 in itself, and a flight from Tampere is probably £40, so it was one of those where it was kind of hilarious to me that you'd moved and done that, but
made sense at the time.
Yeah, I get it, yeah, and by all accounts, had a really nice time with Ben in Vasa, and then I think you did 3 months back in the UK, and then you do about 3 months. Where I met.
Then I came to six months.
Yeah, and that's where I think I ended up coming to visit you.
Yeah,
and that was, you were living a couple blocks away from Terhi in a nice little, was it? If my memory says Mechanic and Polka, it was.
Yeah, that's the one.
That was a bit of a mouthful, that one, isn't it? That was the first street, because I remember trying to explain to the taxi drivers occasionally when I was drunk, then where are you going to? And you're like, Mechanic and Polka. Like, it was just so hard to say, but yeah. And I remember I just got back from LA, and we were chatting, and you basically had said, "I'm in Finland at the moment." And the long story short was, you just said, if you just got back from LA and you're planning to settle down in the UK, before you do that, as in rent an apartment, take out a lease, that kind of thing, you said, "Why don't you come visit me in Finland? It's a lovely place. Why don't you come out for a couple of weeks?" And I just said, "Yeah, why not?" sort of thing. And I remember I flew out, and we had I came for 3 weeks, I think, didn't I?
I think it was about 3 weeks.
And it was absolute blast. I got to meet Terhi, who's lovely, and we went for nice food, went for beers, we hit the gym quite a lot, we played poker. Like, it was just a nice trip. And
it was good.
I remember I went back to England feeling nice and refreshed from that, and again ready to sort of get an apartment and settle down. And you'd said to me, I think in that time you'd proposed, and I think you'd asked Terhi to marry in those after. And essentially you're planning to move in together, but she still had maybe 6 months to a year on her lease.
Yeah.
And you just said, "Hey man, do you want to, before you again settle down with an apartment, do you want to come and share an apartment with you for sort of 3 to 6 months or so before, and then eventually when I move out, Terhi will move in, and it'll be a nice little first time for you guys to live together. And I said, I remember thinking, oh, it's a big commitment type thing, but we did it, and it was a really great time, to the point where when Terhi's lease did end up, I'd made some friends and enjoyed my time so much that I rented an apartment myself in the centre, and that was 6 years ago or something. So it's
now Finland's got us both.
Now they've got that's it. So the moral of the story is don't come to visit Finland
unless you want to go anywhere else.
Exactly.
Ever again.
Exactly. And now Finland's lovely, obviously, but it's one of those things where I was planned it for 3 weeks, then planned for 6 months, then planned when I got the apartment in the centre. I was like, well, the landlady, she let me have a lease that was month by month, and I said I'll probably just be a few months till after Christmas, and then I'll move on with my life. And then ended up staying for too long, and then just as I was about to potentially maybe I'll move on, then I meet my girlfriend, and then you're stuck for a long time, aren't you? So it's but that's that. So that's essentially how you and I sort of know each other. And so both I'm sort of an ex-poker player now. You're still full-time poker pro. We sort of specialised in different formats, but always talked about the game together and had good trips. Pete actually dragged me along to a live poker tournament, actually, again almost against my will, that I ended up winning, which was quite amusing. Go for it, go for it.
Oh, it's kind of heavy. I might need to...
This is yes. So this is I didn't plan for the subtle brag here. Maybe one for the thumbnail. But this was the trophy I won in Estonia for
champion.
Main event champion. And clueless at tournaments, but we got the win. And it's one of those where Pete dragged me along to that tournament. He kind of scammed me. He said, "Oh, there'll be cash games. So I play cash games. Pete plays tournaments. There'll be loads of cash games. There'll be loads of cash games." We arrived on the Thursday. The tournament was the Friday. There was a cash game, but it was terrible. I lost 1,200 euros in about an hour. We went to bed, and I was like, well, fuck, I guess my weekend's going to be digging out of that hole, whatever. And then you said, well, play them. Come on, you're here. You got to play the main. Just at least do one bullet. And I was saying to Pete, I need to just grind these cash games. I'll play the cash or whatever. He's like, come on, grind one bullet. Just do one bullet in the main. The main event was 550 euros. We play it. And then, it was 600 people, give or take, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I won it for 49,000 euros. So it was a very grateful abduction from Pete to drag me out here. So it was...
It's a great little trip.
It was a good trip.
It was good.
Really good times. And Estonia is a lovely place. Tallinn's lovely city as well.
Really, really good live place to play poker.
Yeah, definitely. And but briefly before I go into some stuff about poker and some things on topic, you're also recently massively into arm wrestling as well.
Obsessed.
Obsessed is the correct word. And and you've tell people about that. I think people would like to, because I don't think it's a very common hobby. So how did you get into it?
I guess, and it's hard to say exactly the time, but I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago, at some point the YouTube algorithm decided to show me an arm wrestling video. I'm not exactly sure which one, but I've got a suspicion it might have been one of the most popular video clips, which is of Devon Larat.
That guy rings a bell. Yep, you told me when we lived together. I remember you started to just get into the videos.
Okay.
Because I remember
Don't remember this.
Because I remember we go. I do. I remember when we lived together. You'd be like, "That Devon really rings a bell." Like you'd be like, "Look at this, and he'd drag me over to your PC, and I'm like, "What's this?" And you're like, and it was like 2 dudes about to arm wrestle, and they'd arm wrestle, and one of them would win, and he'd be like, "How cool is that, man?" I was like, "It's an arm wrestle, yeah." And he's like, "This is like the world champion, and this is the guy." They have these 2 guys had a bit of a beef, I think, or they were like the best. And one
of them was kind of the world champion, and the other one's the Mountain from Game of Thrones.
That was it.
So he was twice the size.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember thinking at the time, how can someone so small beat the Mountain? That's probably what everyone thinks when they watch the video. And then I think it was the first time I'd ever seen Devon, and then starting to follow his journey in the arm wrestling world. And Devon's a flipping giant. He's like 6'6" or something.
Right.
And in that video, you think,
tiny.
Who is this
small guy,
tiny person?
Who's this weed of a man?
Like 6'6" and just massive.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, watching the videos, and then at some point during that time, but there was kind of a delay before I started thinking, this looks so fun, maybe I should try it. And then I kind of had the thoughts, but nothing really happened. And then we were looking to move house because we had to find somewhere else to live.
Oh yeah.
After our apartment was put for sale.
Yeah.
It gave us a couple of hours to find somewhere else to live.
Yeah, it was shocking. Yeah. I mean, this isn't me, by the way. This is Pete and his wife. They the apartment Pete and I lived in together. They were living there for a couple of years after, I think. And you just wasn't it? You just gone through a nightmare renovation where
it was a terrible renovation.
Yeah, they just had like you get it quite often in Finland where they just where the balconies. My old building had the elevator serviced, and that was a nightmare. And there's just a thing, they come in waves where there'll be a servicing of the structure in some form. And you had in the middle of the summer, I believe, your balconies refurbished, and it was an absolute nightmare. I remember you saying your apartment was like close, not 40 degrees, but really hot, and you struggled through it. And just as that finished, the landlord then comes and says, "Oh, by the way, I've decided I'm going to sell the apartment, so you need to move out."
Funny thing about that is that's not exactly what happened. What actually happened is that we were thinking of moving because we didn't want to rent.
Yeah.
And as Terry was browsing apartments, she stumbles across our apartment for sale.
My God.
For sale. And and then asked the landlord, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I did put it up for sale."
That's insane.
We had to really, really hurriedly find somewhere to move to really quickly. So that kind of took over. So it wasn't a time for me to start a new hobby now.
Wasn't a Finnish landlord, was it? Because I probably already sort of painting the Finnish people in a bad lens there.
It wasn't a Finnish.
It wasn't a Finnish person. The Finns are pretty above board with that kind of stuff. I think this was someone from a different country, so probably a British person. But yeah, that's much more British behaviour than Finnish, isn't it? So no, but no, yeah.
But yeah, then we found the place that we're living now, and I think it was pretty soon after we moved in. Even before we moved in, I did know there was an arm wrestling club very close to where we moved in.
Right, yeah.
And then pretty soon after we moved in and had settled down and had some time to chill out, I obviously knew there was an arm wrestling club, and I just thought, well, this is the time, right? It looks fun. Let's try it. So I went along, and honestly, after the first session, it was just, this is my sport. This is amazing. Everything about it since for the last 2 years I've been doing it. It's just been the most fun thing ever.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it's I encourage everybody to just try it. Just try it just once. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I say that because I think most people are just surprised when they try it. The people that I've seen try it for the first time have always been surprised.
You think it's probably like the adrenaline, like a rush of like winning or losing even, but like the battle, like it's...
I think it's just fun. Like when Terry tried it, she was...
Is it fun when you lose?
Said, yeah.
Because we've talked about this a few times where like I've got a friend, Gav, who I'll get on the podcast at some point, who whenever we go out, he lives in England, like my best mate in England, we basically, every time I go out back to England to visit, which is a few times a year, we go to a pub of some form, and a few drinks later he's trying to get me to arm wrestle someone in the pub, and it happens all the fucking time. And fortunately so far it's been 100% success rate, and that's not a brag about how massively strong I am. It's probably the very selected competition that he picks in the thing, but basically he just goes up to some big lad and he'll just go, right, arm wrestle for shots. And I told you the last time he did it was in Reading, and he picked some cage fighter guy who wasn't big but looked very athletic, and we managed to beat him and get the shots. And it doesn't feel bad, or it felt quite good too, obviously, because you're drunk and it's fun. But there's going to come a time where he's going to pick someone, and I'm going to get destroyed. And I feel like, does that feel bad, or is it?
I've pretty much only ever lost in competitions. In competitions, I've probably had 25 arm wrestling matches now. I've probably won 4 times.
So what is it exactly that you think that? What is the? What's the love for it? Is it just, what is, I'm not really giving my words very clearly, but what is it you love about it? Like, because I'd understand if it's like, the first, I'm not saying golf, but the first time you hit a clean drive, down, I can understand why someone might get the love for that, because it's quite hard to hit a golf ball very well, right? And if you hit one beautifully, I can understand people saying, oh, it's just, or I've got friends that do Ironman competitions, and I imagine, like, it doesn't appeal to me in the absolute slightest, but I understand 6, 7, 8, 9 months worth of just dedication and training to spend 9-10 hours on a bike, and so it must be a grueling process. I do understand that. Like one of the guys who did it, I remember he was in tears afterwards, like with the achievement, and you understand it. You spent best part of a year of your life preparing for something very hard, so I get that. But with the arm wrestling, especially I understand if you like bang, you just maybe there's like an adrenaline rush. But what is it that you think that really hooks you in terms of the arm wrestling? What is it?
The first time, I think, the first or second time I went, there were some girls there, and one of them, I was introduced, and I think one of them was introduced as a world champion, and she's maybe 50 years old, weighs about 55 kilograms.
Damn.
And after kind of showing me what to do, they said, right, you two arm wrestle. And I just won't forget the feeling of, gripping up, and it felt like a brick wall. And at that, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move sideways. My arm would just be completely...
So you got like what, 20, 25, 30 kilos on it, sort of thing?
Yeah, like 20 kilos, and gripped up, and then it looked effortless for her just to take my arm to the pad, take my hand like this. I couldn't do anything.
Interesting. Okay.
And it was very quickly I realised that not only is this a strength sport, obviously if you're stronger you're going to be better. It's technique.
Yeah.
Okay. And then everything else. Well, I mean, yeah, it's strength.
Like brute force will get you only so far in.
Yeah,
in it, yeah.
And technique will only get so far.
Yeah.
So far, but I'm not strong, but I'm not weak. So when you have some a 50-year-old lady who's, like you said, 20 kgs lighter, and you're told they're good, you're thinking, okay, well, how good is a good 55 kg female arm wrestler? It's like,
in
okay,
50s,
good enough that I can't even move a finger or a thumb or a hand, or I can't do anything. It's like, okay, so really good then.
Yeah.
So it kind of made me think, okay, this is like, there's so much going on here. There's so much to work with, so much to do. And then on top of that, there's I don't want to say community, but
sure.
basically the community. But there's definitely a special sort of kind of camaraderie between all of the arm wrestlers that I think is very rare for a competitive sport. Well, very rare specifically for a 1v1 competitive sport, because it's obviously 1v1.
Yeah.
And what I've seen over and over and over is there'll be a title match for the national championships or like a world championship match, and so often there'll be a close match between essentially the best guy in the world and the second best guy in the world, and it'll be a match to see who's best, and obviously one of them will win. And then every time what happens after that, half an hour later or an hour later, they'll be on the practice table, and the two guys who just had a match that they've been training for like 3 months and like all revved up for and going crazy, after the match they're on the practice table, and the guy that won is explaining to the other guy,
this is what you do wrong.
What, if you'd have done that, you'd have beaten me. And try that might work. Like if you'd have done that, then you would have probably had a really good chance, and I probably wouldn't have been able to stop you.
Right, interesting.
And it's really interesting that essentially rivals, they'll have a really brutal match, and then as soon as it's over, they'll be basically trying to help them, not necessarily beat them next time, but I mean essentially they'll basically say, well, this is what your weaknesses are. And I can't really think of any other competitive kind of athletic sports where that happens.
I think that to me reminded me when you were saying all this, that does it almost like a martial art. There are a lot of martial arts where that is the case. Maybe not at like the elite level. Like if you take, for example, like UFC, for example, obviously the headline celebrities don't do that sort of stuff. But I always remember when I've taken part in kickboxing and things like that, is very much a case of, it's funny when you go to do I did a bit of like in the kickboxing, we did some wrestling, there's some grappling sort of thing. I mean, and you would do it, and I remember being like 14, 15, you do it with a guy in his 23, 24, and he'd always beat you, left, right and centre, always beat you. But it was always be a case of you'd basically get your ass kicked for 20 minutes, but it was always in like a kind of like it would never be like a kind of like a malicious or ego way. It would just be I'm not gonna let this guy win. I'm gonna beat him, but he's gonna get better every single time. And I'm gonna teach him. Well, no, you need to move your center of gravity here, and this is how you get out of this pin. And here's and it's like. So I kind of get what you're saying.
Okay.
It's that is interesting. Yeah,
but it's just nice. It's kind of it's just a nice atmosphere because you kind of know when you see it on the world stage and then you see it repeatedly like locally, you kind of realise that you can be basically the best. You can try and be the best, but still everyone's just going to be friendly afterwards.
Yeah, that's nice.
Which is kind of cool and yeah, basically no one's heard, like no one thinks arm wrestling is like a sport really. Not many people do. Most people when they think of it, they're like, oh, do you mean like in the pub or with your friends or whatever? Yeah. And then if you kind of say, oh, actually, countries have national teams and there's like world championships and everything. That what arm wrestling, like really?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get into it, you realise that, the better arm wrestlers in the country, they're training like 12 times a week.
Yeah.
Like they still got full-time jobs, but they're training like they dedicate themselves to it. So
I think the thing is,
really cool.
the thing that's rough with it, I think though, is that I've seen you after sessions and just generally, and when I'm drunk in the pub and I arm wrestle the next morning, I wake up and I'm like, it is pretty damaging to the arm, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are, I'm sure with the right recovery and technique and things like that, it's not as bad. But I'm a bit surprised with yourself, as you are someone who I'd say is a little less. You're not careless with your body, if that makes sense. You're very careful of. You wouldn't do a lot of things with a lot of long-term negative effects. Let's just say, for example, and yeah, I remember when you said you're doing arm wrestling, I was like. You must wake up the next few days just like with awful pain in your arm and just be like. And then there are times where you wake up and go, "Oh fuck me!" Like, do you know what I mean? Kind of.
Not really. Not really. I mean, yeah, they can be painful.
Yeah.
But
like I think you mentioned on times you've gone to training and you just grip up and you're like, I can't, like, because you've you're not there yet. Yeah. And I imagine that must be super common. Like there must be times where we're just in general in arm wrestling where people you've had a big session or whatever, and then when you go back to train again, you just any sort of resistance, you're like, better not, kind of a lot of pain, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting sport, and you keep trying to drag me down there, and
I'm hoping one day I get to witness your arm wrestle for sure.
Yeah, maybe one day.
But you know when you hit the gym for like a back and biceps or a chest and back, mm-hmm. and you just have one of those sessions where it feels good, you're like stronger than you thought, everything feels good, and you get a good pump, and then after the session you just like, oh, this feels amazing, I feel great.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say about arm wrestling is that after like every arm wrestling session, you feel like twice as good as that feeling.
Okay, interesting.
Like everything that you could kind of that feels good when it's pumped up feels good and pumped up.
Makes sense.
And even more so than like the best gym session ever.
Yeah.
It really does feel great.
No, yeah, I'll definitely. It's one of those things. It'll be on the bucket list. Like I'll get down there with you in the summer or something. It feels like it for me. I'm a fair weather arm wrestler.
I can't wait because, as you know, we've got the 55 kg ladies and we've got some 120 kg like national champions.
I don't think
it's going to be
stand
fun.
A chance there.
It's going to be fun just to.
I don't
just
be
like who's first.
I think the 55 kg 50-year-old woman will destroy me. Let alone the 120 kilo unit. Because I'm 120 kilos myself, right? So like, I'm kind of a big lad. No, so yeah, I think that will be humbling to say the least. I think it'll be fun. We'll give it a spin sometime.
But you're obviously a natural. I mean, you can't have like your success record in pubs.
Well, am I natural or am I arm wrestling a 85 kilogram cage fighter who's shredded, thinks he's quite strong, but he is 35 kilos lighter than me or whatever. It's kind of
maybe.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm. I wouldn't say I'm a natural in the sense of I have no evidence to suggest I'm a technically good arm wrestler.
Good chance that you could be a natural.
Could be, but I think it's more likely that I'm just in a pub wrestling people that I just have just generic higher base levels of strength, and they have equal amounts of arm wrestling experience, let's just say. So do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I think if you took a 90 kilogram casual competitive arm wrestler, they probably beat me pretty comfortably. 90
kg competitive.
Yeah, as in like just someone at your club.
It's actually interesting to think about.
Do you know what I mean? Like someone who's like at your club. If there's like I don't think a 55 kilogram world champion. I think they'll still beat me because the woman will probably still. Because world champion's pretty. I don't know. I could be wrong, but like, I think they would.
I'm not. I'm kind of not sure because I'm the opposite of a natural arm wrestler. I should say, like, I am way below average in ability and like natural ability. Like, I was just flopping my arms around for like a year. Didn't know what I was doing. So I'm not a natural.
Okay.
So I mean that definitely contributes somewhat. but I would say like
you're a passionate unnatural though.
Oh yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd say there's a good chance that if you take 65 kg world champions, then they're probably just smash you probably every time.
Yeah. You'd like
It's just like scary. It's like all of their weight is just here.
It's the same as if like you take if I did judo against a 65 kilogram world champion 16-year-old girl, she'd probably still destroy me, right? Because there's so much technique. Like it's like even you know what I mean. It's just one of those things where it's like that if you're technically world class at judo. It doesn't matter how big I am or how stronger I am than that person. They're going to absolutely flip you on your ass. You know, it's just how it is, right? So it's kind of, I think it's like that for sure.
They're training 15 hours a week. I mean, they can make up for crazy physical differences for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a case of whereas if you put somebody in a cage fighting scenario where obviously there will be rules. I don't know the exact rules of different MMA. You know, obviously you can't hit below the belt. You can't poke in the eyes. There's certain hair grabbing, all that sort of stuff. But even though I've not got cage fighting experience per se, if I've fought a 16-year-old 55 kilogram dude, I'm pretty sure I would like to expect I would come out better off in that, for example, right? Even though my fitness levels are that of a overweight fat old dog, but other than that, other than that, that might be the hindering factor. But but sure, if you put me against like you say, the reason, like if you did bench press with that world champion and the arm wrestling, the 55 kilogram 50-year-old lady, you back yourself all day that you probably outbench her, but that's the force distribution or how you can generate the force and the technique is just makes up for so many physical discrepancies, if you will, right? So so it's very interesting, man, and I'm glad you found something that you're really passionate about outside of poker, because you're very passionate about poker as well, like your career, but it's nice to find something outside like that. On the topic of poker again, and sort of about with fitness, I thought we could have a bit of a discussion about I want to talk about the Sean Deeb, Bill Perkins.
Okay.
Before we get onto good old American guns, I've got lined up for you. But
nice.
For those of you that, again, another poker one.
This isn't a scandal, is it?
It's not a scandal. No. This is a lighter one for just to keep the mood a bit higher. So Bill Perkins is a recreational but very good, I would say, poker player. So he's a businessman. He made his money in commodities and gas trading. I think one of his poker screen names is Gas Trader. So that's where he's made his money. Funds, hedge, stocks, just insert any financial word there, and that's sort of what he did. I don't know the man again, but he seems like a genuinely quite nice human being from what I've seen. I don't know if you'd agree or disagree.
Seems so.
Seems nice, like good fun, good banter, a lot of gamble to him. Seems to be quite liked in the community. And he's very well known for throwing out a prop bet, so like a kind of outrageous prop bet and with people. So, for example, my favourite, which is a bit of a side note, is he took an aspiring up and coming pro. What's the guy's name?
The streamers.
No, who's the dude? He played heads up and destroyed.
What's
his name? Sorry, I've got a blank. Landon Tice.
Yeah.
So there was this up and coming young poker pro, Landon Tice, who's kind of another well-known ex-pro / content creator to kind of his wing, and the guy's very like one of those like whiz kids who's like, he's only been playing 2 years and he's already playing these stakes and he's going to be the next this and next that, and the guy seems like a nice dude, seems relatively solid at poker. You know, doesn't seem world class, but loves it and is good, right? So it's kind of ended up doing what I would say pretty good publicity for himself, and got himself in a heads-up match against. A heads-up means 1-to-1 for the one-on-one for those of you that don't know, against Bill Perkins, this big businessman who gives a lot of action. And with the battle of, I can't remember that he would pay. I don't want to bore the viewers with the intricate details, but the other guy would get like it would be a handicap match where the businessman would get like a bit of an advantage to make it a bit more even or whatever. And it was really high stakes, so he sold action to investors to play, and he got absolutely destroyed to the point where they cancelled the challenge early because Bill was essentially too good. Like, they were way better than the argument was the investors didn't expect Bill to try that hard was the kind of the general story, and that was kind of hilarious, and that was that. So the guy kind of almost like blew his big shot of like becoming one of the fast tracking to one of the elite, you know, personalities of poker, I would say. Still might get that, you know, no hate against the guy. He seems like a nice guy, but
he's well known now. Win or lose.
Yeah, for sure, true. But I think, do you not agree that maybe this was like his shot? If he destroyed this could have been a really good, like, could have elevated him to kind of a bit like what's the guy's name? Epiphany. Charlie Carroll. You know how he went from sort of like nobody to like millionaire poker whiz from. You know, it was the kind of stories of a year ago was playing micro stakes, and now it's so that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. Except that Landon's just well known anyway now, and I'm not sure what would be.
But he was well known before, right? Because he was Joe's.
I guess he was kind of well known before because he was the
Berkey stuff. Yeah.
But he, as you said, he got beat up pretty bad. But I mean, he's still well known. I'm not in touch with the high stakes stuff, but I just don't know what would be different if he'd have won. I mean, presumably if he'd been won, he'd be playing slightly higher games, or he'd sell action more easily, or I'm not sure. But he still seems super active, so I just don't know.
Yeah. My take on it is that if he had won, or not even won, because there was a handicap, right? So it is gonna be more difficult than a normal match. But the fact that he got absolutely destroyed to the point where his investors basically pulled out was like, dude, you got to throw in the towel. This is like done. We're going to lose too much.
Yeah.
And you remember there was a bit of, this wasn't really the talk about it because I'm not going to hate on the guy. I think he's a nice dude. Don't know him too well. But do you remember there was all the talk about one of the coaches saying he was uncoachable? And do you remember all that stuff that came out that the coaches they had paid to bring in to get him up to speed had said, that this is like really high stakes like pros that were just like, this guy's uncoachable, he doesn't listen, he doesn't do that and stuff. So I think it was like a bad look on his immediate poker career or expediting his path to, you know, could have been like playing Phil Hellmuth in heads up challenges.
But I guess the thing that I'm not sure what would be different if he'd won is that he goes from being an unknown quantity with potential and essentially gets bankrolled infinite. Okay.
Oh, don't get me wrong. 100% you take the free roll. I'm not saying you shouldn't have taken the deal. Yeah.
And if he wins, he essentially carries on. But I'm just not sure if what's changed. As in, I think part of it is that people are just like, oh, Bill Perkins is actually a lot better than we thought.
Yeah,
I think that's part of that.
I think there's a couple of things. I think firstly, it was like it rubbed off as like a naivety. Like you thought because somebody else turned down the bet. Do you remember? Like I can't remember who it was. Bill had offered. I think it was Doug. I think because it was Doug Polk after he played Negreanu. It was like, sorry for the viewers who are not really into poker, but basically he just played Doug Polk. Doug Polk just played Negreanu, and then Bill Perkins said, "I want the same bet." He just beat him for like 1.2 million, hadn't he? In that big battle they had, and then he said, "I want the same bet, but I want odds, as in I want the handicap." Doug was like, "I'm done, mate. I don't want to play challenges." And then Landon stepped in and said, "I would do it." And I think, don't get me wrong, from as a publicity standpoint, it's a hell of a free roll to take because if Bill doesn't take it seriously and you beat him, you come off as this like gifted poker kid who's like only not been playing poker 2 years ago, and now suddenly you've just won a huge high stakes heads up match, and he didn't specialize in heads up, so it's quite naive to be like, I'm not a heads up player, but I reckon I can beat you for millions of dollars. That's the sort of thing, the way I took it. And then when he got destroyed to the extent of, if you'd lost, by all means, there's no harm in losing. But being called off like weeks in, if it was like instantly being called off by your backers saying this kid's just not it kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure his reputation took a hit.
And like I said, in a sense of
reputation.
And not, as I said, no nothing against the guy. I just thought it was and it was a massive tangent. I don't know how because it was the point was Perkins and Sean Deeb. But the point is that Bill Perkins is known for these wild challenges and I'll sort of thing. But he's not a moron. Is the point? He's not the strongest poker player, but he's certainly not a fish, right? He's
No.
So anyway, but there's a very well known poker player called Sean Deeb who's from all extensions, what I know about him, a very good tournament player. You probably know more than me.
I think so.
From what I understand, he's very good. Like, is in at least at like lots of formats. Like, he plays loads of different types of games. He always goes to the World Series and plays for the Player of the Year.
Yeah,
all
I think
that
he
sort of stuff.
might be one of those guys that just plays
Everything.
volume, the higher stakes, always wins. So he gets like the Player of the Year, and he tops the leaderboards, and he's just like always been good.
Yeah, won't be like technically the best theoretical reg out there, but he's very solid professional pro for years.
Wins, basically.
Yeah. So, and he's also very overweight, right? And makes no what's the word? Doesn't deny it. He's almost like doesn't care. He's very overweight, eats unhealthily. You made a point that earlier, which I think was spot on, which you said looks like the kind of guy that sort of you just get the impression just hates sports and hates sort of people that do sport, in the sense of like he's a lovely guy, wife and kids, like kind of living the American dream type thing, and it's just like, I'm fat, I'm unhealthy, I'm gonna die earlier, so be it. Like he's that kind of mentality, and there is this
seems from the outside.
Yeah, and the bet is this is why it sounds like people already see people going, oh, he's fat shaming, he's coming. But this is why it's funny, right? Is that there's a video of Sean Deeb at the poker table playing, eating chicken nuggets, just like eating loads of these chicken nuggets while he's playing poker, and Bill Perkins puts that video on Twitter and says, right, you're baiting me in, fine, Sean. Your 50k to my 1 million, you have 1 year to get to 10% body fat, right? Just calls him out for it. And obviously this guy we estimate about 40 to 45%, people have said 43% body fat. So he's got a lot of body. So there's no shot that he's going to become 10% body fat in a year. Everyone knows that. And he's now negotiated the long and short. He was just like, what you can offer me, he said, you can offer me 2,000 to 1. We both know there's not a fucking world I'm ever going to do that. Mostly because he doesn't want to.
I assume Bill knows that as well.
Yeah, and money's not a problem for the guy, and health isn't a priority for the guy. So it's like, why is he going to take the bet? He just doesn't want to do it, which is fair enough, right? But he ended up, I reckon, what I believe has happened, he's had a little chat with his wife, and his wife's like, you wouldn't do, like, it would do, for the health reasons, I think his wife would like him to cut weight, and, he's got kids, live longer, spend more. Like, she's probably said, maybe this is what you need, is the push to, and they've negotiated a deal where he's got to get to 17% body fat, and he's got a year and a half, and it's his $100,000 versus the $1 million. So slightly different terms.
It's a nice bet, that.
Yeah, and I remember me and Pete. It got me and Pete talking earlier when I brought it up about. I said, I don't know. I think my body fat's around 30% or so, and I've got scales that say it's about that, but who knows? And I've been much lower body fat in my life, and I'm not in the best shape of my life right now, as the camera probably shows relatively honestly. But the point is, if you said to me, do I think I can get to 17% body fat next year? The answer is probably no, because I'm just not going. I'm not going to, right? It's just like it's not a priority for me, sort of thing. But if someone said to me, essentially for a bet, for $1 million kind of thing, 100% I can do it, sort of thing. Yes, I'm not in quite as bad shape as Sean Deeb potentially is, right? But the point is, I said to you that starts thinking about what things could you do in a year, like if you dedicate, because obviously you wouldn't have to work, right? If your job is $1 million for this year to achieve X goal, and I remember saying as a potentially bad example, I said to Pete, well, if you get to learn to play the violin in a year, like you could do it for $1 million. Like I can't play the violin, Pete can't play the violin. And Pete was like, what, like just play that one song? I was like, no, I mean, like I said grade 8, which was probably stupid of me, because that's what I believe is the highest grade of a instrument.
I think it's sort of the highest.
When you do lessons, it's like grade 8 is up there, isn't it?
I think it's
like
the highest you can get without going to like the nosebleeds.
Right, yeah. So grade 8 on violin, from a man who's never played a violin in his life, and it's probably potentially a bit naive of me, but But then we started saying like things that we would think we could do, like and I said like speak Finnish, like learn Finnish. We probably.
I told you not to put me
Yeah,
on the
you
spot.
told him because.
Oh no, ban topic.
I mean, well, I won't. I basically said, if you think about it, because I was trying to give examples, and I said, well, if you think about it, like for the violin, right? We currently train 0 hours a day of violin, a pair of us, because we do. So I said, but you could train 8 hours a day. You know, let's just say you take 2 days off, so you have 5 days a week. You do 40 hours a week. You could spam in the hours over the year, right? And you could do it. And I said, well, think about it, Pete. Like, would you study Finnish a day? 10, 30 minutes? And he went, I won't go into the numbers, but basically, we've established that if Pete was given a year with my structure of 8 hours a day, he could definitely speak fluent Finnish for sure. Yeah, I'm on the program. So, but yeah, that's going to be definitely an interesting challenge to sweat out a little bit, because I'm going to. What do you think right now? Yes or no? Will he do it?
I don't think he'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on the fact that, as far as I know, he's gone through his entire life with just a sedentary lifestyle, with no passion for like activity or sport. So the reason I don't think he'll do it is because he'd literally need to turn his lifestyle upside down to do it.
Yep.
As in, not only turn it upside down, but turn it upside down and to become a lifestyle that he's literally got no experience of ever.
I am inclined to agree 90% of what you say. My one glimmer of hope for him is I think he hates to lose a bet. I think he's really competitive.
Okay.
Given what I've seen on Twitter, right? They do these like they do the bets for the him and Negreanu hate each other from what I understand.
Yeah, I think
really hate each other quite viciously actually. We get more scandals as comments about each other's wives. I mean, it gets really deep. It's quite honestly for those of you that aren't, poker Twitter is where the drama's at. I'm telling you, if you haven't got enough drama in your life, poker Twitter. So
pretty weird combination. I think Twitter's bad enough if you take anything, and then you add poker in it just becomes a bit.
Yeah, it's that and crypto Twitter. They're two things that they're just cesspits, man. Absolute cesspits. But we'll save that for another episode. So, but so they're notoriously not good friends, and they both go for World Series of Poker, which is a big series of poker in Vegas every year. They have a thing called Player of the Year, and every tournament you play in, every tournament you cash in, you get a certain amount of points. The person with the most amount of points at the year gets an award. And Daniel Negreanu, and who have a lot of people that don't play poker, I think, know, him and Sean Deeb compete for this most years because they both play lots of events, and it gets and they have bets on it. And Sean Deeb, like he does grind, he does, like, he'll play it the whole summer. He take time away from his kids, like he would say, it's so I think there's a world, especially, and I feel like he's a good. This is again complete speculation. He seems like a good family man and a good husband. And I feel like he doesn't hide the fact that his wife is in charge. That he makes it always on. He'll always say on Twitter, "Well, you should have spoken to my wife. You should have done this." And I get the impression that if she says to him, but I feel like part of the reason he grinds so hard and plays a lot of the tournaments is she sends him off. Goes, "No, come on, like you're not going to be doing this forever. Go off and do the whole series. Like I've got the kids for 2 months. It's fine, sort of thing." Okay. And I think she'll basically say to him, Give me that cheeseburger. Throw it, and she'll be like, "There's your salad. Like, shut up. You can do it for a year and a half." I feel like there's an out there that, but 17% is quite low.
I think
he'll get to mid-20s.
I just think you could have your wife or your mum or your dad confiscate all your burgers and take all your food away. But I think if someone wants to lead a lifestyle, they'll just leave it. They'll just leave it.
I do agree.
They'll get the food
I do agree,
else,
but it is $1 million. Like, there is that. I'm not saying he needs the $1 million. I don't know his finances, like. But
yeah, so $1 million. I don't know.
And
so
he loses $100K.
$1 million is like less of a big thing for him than it would be for us.
100%. I'd hope so.
So then it comes down is like how, lose weight for $1 million to basically everyone on the planet is like, I think I'll do that. For him, maybe it's like, could be a good idea. I don't know.
Let me restructure it. So here's how I think I got into it before you with the violin. I totally agree. $1 million for him and us we're different worlds, right? But let's say, what does he earn a year? It's definitely less than $1 million, right? So let's just say, let's take $100K as a year's salary. Like if somebody said to you right now, like, Pete, $100K in a year for the bet, you got to learn the violin, like to the point where you can play 5 symphonies from Beethoven and Mozart. Like, you know, they give you
100k in a year.
100k. You got a year to play these, like, studio quality, and if you don't, you've got to give them 10k because that's the same odds, right? So you don't want to lose 10k, sure, right? But you could afford to lose 10k. I mean, you lose 10k playing poker at times, you know, it doesn't feel nice, but you know, it's part of you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But 100k for the year's salary, you're just gonna it's like you're just gonna dedicate your whole year to it, right? You're not gonna play any poker for the year.
I mean, I'm not rich, but I can already think of reasons why I wouldn't want to do that for 100k.
Okay.
I can already think of reasons why I wouldn't want to dedicate my life.
So your
to
logic is more that not that the money is. It's basically that he's not going to want to earn $1 million for the year. Even let's say he earns 200k a year, so it's 5 times his salary. Your argument is that it's not that he's getting a 5x pay rise for sucking it up for a year.
I think even 10 times his salary.
You think he's on 100k a year?
Oh, I don't know what he's on, but even if he was on 100k, I'm not sure he'd do it for 10 times. As in,
No.
I mean, for me, for the violin, for multiples of a yearly salary, you would say
violin.
Sorry
to interrupt, but violin's a bad example because violin doesn't really benefit your life, right?
I think it's a good example.
Because I would have said Finnish is a better example because. Because like the thing is, it's not like he hates exercising, sure, but it's not like he gets no gain from it, right? He exercises his absolute tits off, excuse the pun, right? He exercises his tits off,
but he'll hate doing it.
Yeah, 100%. But once it's done, he's got a massive paycheck and he's in shape. And working out as a man who's out of shape currently, like working out only sucks when you're out of shape.
I think you need to find something that's not violin, not Finnish, that you would hate doing for you, because I think we have to admit that he's going to hate doing this. He's going to hate it.
Okay,
but there'll be benefits.
Right.
So we need to think of something that you'll get a benefit from, but you'll fucking hate it.
Okay, I've got one for me.
And in addition, this is one of the reasons that I wouldn't want to do something that I hated for a year if it meant that I essentially couldn't play poker for a year, because that would have a negative effect on all my future years of poker, because it'd be like taking a year out of the game. I'd slide down the hill. I'd slide down the bell curve.
Okay.
And I assume the similar thing, you know, if he's not going off to do 2-month poker tours because he's going to be essentially just training and basically getting healthy for 2 months, he will also slide a little bit down the bell curve of the poker world, which he won't want to do for sure. So he will absolutely hate this year. So we need to think of something that we'd hate doing but would have clear benefits.
I get you, because the issue, because you're spot on. Like the issue I had was, I thought I had a really good example, and it sucks, because my example was going to be like, for me, let's just say you're not allowed to drink any alcohol for the year. You're not allowed to eat. I'm not allowed to eat anything unhealthy. All I'm allowed to eat for the whole year is salad, chicken, and vegetables. Let's just say that is it, and drink water. Like that's it. That would suck, but I could do it for $1 million. Like, as I think, which doesn't make me a hero. Could I do it for 100k? That's where it gets tough, right? Because it's like, if you're saying like a year's salary or something, it's like, well, I do like to eat a pizza. You know, it's one of those things where, especially because that's the issue. If you can earn, that's the problem. Because with like $1 million, let's say it's like, I think it's probably within the region of 5 times his salary, because he plays so high stakes.
That's
I mean,
he could win $1 million tomorrow. Like, he could.
But what I mean is, like, let's say on average his EV, let's say his EV is 200k a year, like, give or take. I think it's reasonable ballpark. Like, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think his EV
probably 100, 200. Yeah. I actually have no idea, but
let's say for ease of the conversation, it's 200,000 a year in EV. So some years he makes 500k, some years he loses 200k, but on average he makes 200k a year. So it's 5 times his salary. Like, for 5 times your salary, I think I could do something because it's only a year. I could do something like that. Like, for example, not drink alcohol, not eat anything unhealthy. Let's say the rule is, for my 5 times salary per year, I have to only eat chicken, vegetables, and salad, only drink water, and I have to exercise an hour a day or whatever it might be. Right, so you got to live a really healthy lifestyle. I could do that. I agree with you. It would suck, but I could do it for
100.
No, because he's getting 5 times his salary, right? So it's like, if you think of it like, let's just say like for half a meal, I'd do it in a heartbeat for half a meal.
Okay.
Because it's like, it is only a year, right? But the difference is my task is easier because it isn't a case of mine is just willpower, right? Mine isn't difficult to do. It's just, this is boring, like, you know, sort of thing. So I get the issue, and there's no real downside of me losing that bet. It is just I don't own anything but chicken, rice, and salad, or whatever it was, and I only have water in the house, so I cannot lose in that sense. But with him, he might work out all year and lose. The point I was sort of making to you is that the upside is he will add years onto his life doing this 100%. Like he's in such bad shape, and I say it's not being rude. It just is what it is. Like he is unhealthy.
But I don't want to be rude to the guy, but I feel like
you feel like you don't get in that shape if it matters. Sort of thing.
I feel like everyone in his position kind of knows that. Like he's obviously a smart guy. So I feel like at least subconsciously, he's already in the process of accepting that's the deal, you know?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't think he's going to make it to 120, but at the same time he's still choosing to live that lifestyle. So he's kind of, at least on a subconscious level, already sacrificing those years. I mean, like, he's not the only person. We all do it.
True. One argument to that I would think, and I think you're totally right, but I would assume every person who's that overweight, as a person who's currently not in the shape they wish I was in better shape. I mean, I wish in the sense of wish is an easy thing to do, right? Like you wish you probably played a few more hours poker. Like you know, everyone wishes they worked harder or did set things a different way, right? But the point is, he's definitely as a very overweight person, multiple times a month maybe, has thoughts when when it's hard to put his socks on, or where he's out of breath running to the car, or whatever it might be, or he's definitely had discomfort where he's like, oh man, I really need to get into shape. Yeah. Like I do all the time. Like I'll go for a walk, I'll be out of breath, I'm like, fucking hell man, I need to get my ass together, sort of thing. And I think, but the laziness of us as humans stops us doing it. But when someone who says to you, right, here is a huge incentive to do it, maybe there's a chance that he goes, enough is enough, Sean. Let's just fucking check this one in and get it done.
I think that money isn't actually that much of a motivator, even for someone like a poker player who potentially doesn't even like the game, but is only doing it because he earns lots of money doing it.
I think you're right, and I would agree with you. If this was a behind closed doors bet of I bet you this, keep the money only, I totally agree. The fact that I think it's in a public forum and it's essentially it's a poker game, it's a big bet, it's a bet. It is, can you do poker's always like, you've heard like Doyle Brunson. There's always these huge stories of like legendary prop bets, right? Of this guy did this for a month, or this would go down as one of those, right? Sean D got down to 17% body fat in a year and a half, like, and he wants to be known as one of the all time.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do.
Like if it's that. If he wants it that much, then that will be the motivation.
Yeah.
I don't actually think the million will be that.
But that's the same in poker, right? The money's never the motivator. The winning is, right? Almost like
maybe.
But the money's just the trophy, almost, as they always say, right? It's like winning in poker is never about. That's why cash games are less appealing than tournaments, right? Because when you go and win 10k in a cash game, the money feels good, but it doesn't ever feel as good as winning a tournament for 2k. Because winning a tournament is like, I want, it's the prestige, and I think it could be a. Don't get me wrong. I'm being a dreamer. I kind of agree with you that I think he probably doesn't do it.
Oh, I don't think he's got no chance. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like 1%. I think the 17 in a year, 17.5%.
Year and a half. Yeah.
In a year and a half. Oh, I mean, he can definitely do it.
Yeah.
But if I had to bet, I'd just say he just won't.
Yeah.
Because I just think that there's so many things, so many incredible achievements, and stories of feats of like perseverance and just wow, he did that, wow, they did that, whatever. I think that just so many of them have got nothing to do with money. They've just like dug deep inside, and there's just some force driving them that I don't think is often money. I think for poker players it's more often money for poker players than it is for other people. But I think most of the time it's just not money. It's just like something is just driving them.
Especially not for rich people, right? That's part of the issue, is that $1 million, like I said, I don't know his finances. Yep, go on, lad. Is that if you've got, I don't know what he's got in the bank, right? But like, given the stakes he plays, it wouldn't be unreasonable to think he's got 10 million in the bank, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, like, I mean, it could be more.
World.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers, Luke.
Like, I could be insulting the guy. He could be worth 50 mil, but like, he could also be worth 1 million, right? So it's like one of those ones where I think it's likely, though, it's probably like 5 to 10 million. So it is like, I mean, yeah. In fact, I'm trolling. He's definitely not worth 1 million because you wouldn't bet 100k on like that kind of level of prop bet. Maybe you would.
Poker player.
Degenerates be degenerates, but.
Could have negative net worth for all we know. It's like, let's get out a loan for this.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Just remortgage the house and just sending it, just absolutely sending it. I'd respect it. Yeah. So, but I think you're right. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. When it's like the person who swims across the, wherever it might be, people that do these huge challenges.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. The first person to run a marathon across the Sahara Desert or whatever that thing was that dude did or whatever. It's like, yeah, money wasn't the motivator there.
Yeah.
But for someone like Sean Deeb, I think the only motivator for him to change his lifestyle and health would be this kind of on the big stage, big prop bet.
Isn't money. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to watch for sure.
Like a fame thing.
Yeah.
It could be.
But yeah, I hope he doesn't just like completely. I hope he doesn't. I could see it going like a month and he buys out for 75k.
This is kind of embarrassingly poker player degenerate of me, but it actually makes me want to bet you. But the opposite.
That they don't. Yeah,
I kind of want to.
But yeah, exactly. But then I would need the same odds he's got, right? Logically.
Would you?
Yeah, because if he's getting 10 to 1 to do it, I would need 10 to 1 on him to do it.
Not if I specifically said I think there's a less than 5% chance that he'll do it potentially.
If you said,
I'd just lay you odds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you need to give me the same odds he's got to do it. As in, Bill Perkins is betting 1 mil to like.
So it's 10 to 1, is it? 9
yeah,
to 1
yeah. So 10.0 in odds, I guess. So it's his 1 million to his 100k. So I'd need to be like my 100 to your 1k, or that kind of equivalent.
Your 10 to my 1, or my 10 to your 1.
Other way around, yeah, because you're the one who believes
it
doesn't happen. So you're the Bill Perkins and I'm the Sean Deeb.
I'm not betting more than $10 on this.
All right, so you're $10 to my $1.
Yeah.
Right, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm no Bill Perkins.
Yeah, fair. But so that was the. I think I'll leave a couple of the other poker scams because I don't want to completely drown our listeners in poker drama. So I thought we could end on just a nice little happy chat about gun control in the United States. So this was not planned at all for the podcast. I was just literally having lunch with Pete just before we jumped on this. How did it even come about guns, Pete?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You asked me something along the lines of, we should have probably rehearsed that bit, in the sense of, we had a discussion where it was really good. It was a really interesting chat where basically, I
think I just said that I find the whole thing kind of confusing.
You're not sure what. Yeah.
I just don't know how I feel.
You can't formulate an opinion on it almost.
Because to my own surprise, I feel myself understanding both sides, but also having, as someone who's never been to America, I have no concept at all of what it would be like to actually be there with the whole gun thing in the back of my mind. That's kind of what I said to you. I'm not sure how we got into it, but that's what I said.
Yeah, I remember we maybe it might even be a topic better left for another occasion potentially, because it is quite but we because I don't even know how long we've been running, but I remember us. I really wish I could remember the point we discussed before that. It was a conversation to do with something, and it was along the lines of
something to do with America. Maybe it wasn't guns, but it was something to do with America.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I'm not saying that guns and America are like the same, but I just mean it was something to do with America.
Yeah, it was. But you know what? Should we leave it there?
We can leave it there.
Yeah. We've teased them with a.
We can holster our weapons and come back another time.
I'll tell you what, we'll do that. We'll I'll have you on another time because it's been fun for sure. And I think what we'll do is we'll get you on. I want to bring you on generally for conspiracy theories.
I love conspiracy
So we'll bring you on next week sometime, and we'll have a podcast discussing various conspiracy theories and whether or not, maybe we'll get Renee in as well. We'll figure out like a proper one, and we'll do. I'll come up with some conspiracy theories, and
We might need a few years to get through the conspiracy theories.
yeah, it might be a long one, but we'll do conspiracy theories, and and I'll basically come up with some. I'll research some, and we'll do ones that you think might be true, might be false, and stuff like that. So, sound good?
Sounds amazing. Yeah, that sounds very
cool.
fun.
Well, Pete, thank you very much for joining us, and
Lee.
thank you everyone for listening through this very entertaining podcast, various poker and non-poker related topics.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you to the Stickmen Pod, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.